So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe review, and today we're finally going to take a look at Nezha. Nezha feels like a combination between Rhino, Ember and Volt. He is pretty tanky, he does a lot of fire damage, and he's pretty fast as well. And while he isn't as tanky as Rhino, doesn't do as much damage as Ember, or isn't as fast as Volt, he is incredibly versatile because you have tankiness, you have crowd control, you have damage, and you have speed. So let's finally check out this jack of all trades but master of none, shall we? So first of all, to get Nezha, you just have to do sorties, because all his parts are a reward from finishing sorties. But if you're not a big fan of sorties, you can also buy them from other players, because Nezha is the only non-primed Warframe that's tradable. Now, the stats on Nezha are a little bit weird. He only has 75 health and shields, which both go up to 225 at rank 30, and he has 175 armor, which is a lot of armor. But since you don't have a lot of health, you can't really take advantage of that armor, unfortunately. He also has 150 power, which goes up to 225 at rank 30, which is average, sprint speed of 1.15, so he's faster than most other Warframes, and he has 3 polarities, a D, a V, and a dash in the aura slot. His abilities, as I've said already, are fairly versatile, and they range from running around like a madman and leaving fire behind, throwing a blazing Chakram, protecting yourself with a warding halo, or impaling enemies with divine spears. Now, before we take a more in-depth look at Nezha's abilities, I just want to talk about his passive called Frictionless. So Nezha, by default, has reduced friction on the ground. This will increase the distance of any ground slides that you do. Now, this does apply to slide attacks, so if you, for example, have the new Telos Boltis and you are using Maiming Strike, it makes you slide really far. It's a lot of fun. And originally, this was in effect at all times, so when you were playing Nezha, it felt like you were running around on ice, which was rather annoying, but they've changed it, so now you don't slide as much when you're just running around, which is a good change because it was rather annoying to constantly slam into walls. So Nezha's first ability is called Firewalker, where Nezha ignites the ground beneath his feet and gains 20% bonus movement speed. As he's running around though, he will leave a fire trail behind that will last for 10 seconds, cure all status effects from your allies if they run through it, and deal 200 heat damage with very high status chance to all enemies standing inside the trail every half a second. Now, the fire trail is affected by power strength, which increases its damage, and power duration, which increases its duration, and the movement speed bonus isn't affected by any mods. Now, Firewalker is a toggle ability, and it will drain 5 energy every second while it's active. The energy drain is affected by power efficiency and power duration, where power efficiency has a much more noticeable effect, but power duration is still noticeable. And while you have Firewalker active, the only way you can restore your energy is with energy orbs. You cannot gain energy from Team Energy Restore's Energy Siphon, the Xenoric passive ability, Rift Plane, or Trinity's Energy Vampire. This ability is surprisingly good. Not only does it do pretty good damage and has good crowd control because fire does incapacitate enemies for a couple of seconds, but it also gives you bonus movement speed, which is really nice, and if you have enough duration, it's really good versus the Grenier and the Infested, because while you're running around, you'll be leaving fire all over the place, and it will dispel all the slash and toxin procs from you and your allies. Nezha's second ability is called Blazing Chakram, where Nezha throws a Blazing Chakram. Now, this Chakram will ricochet 5 times either off of enemies or objects and then return back to you. If it is an enemy, it will deal 100 heat damage with 100% status chance, and it will mark them for 10 seconds. Now, if the marked enemy dies, it will release a healing pulse that has a radius of 8 meters and restores 225 health to you and all your allies. And it doesn't matter if you just shoot the marked enemies or they die from the heat proc. Now, if you throw the Blazing Chakram and reactivate the ability while it's in the air, it will teleport you to the Chakram's location. And while this is really good and it allows you to bypass big rooms and it helps with the void treasure rooms, if you teleport yourself too close to a wall, you may fall through the world, so you have to be a little bit careful with this. Now, the amount of healing you get if you kill a marked enemy is affected by power strength, the duration of the mark is affected by power duration, and the radius of the healing pulse is affected by power range. So you can't change the damage this ability does, it will always only do 100 heat damage. Now, there is a synergy between Blazing Chakram and Nezha's first ability, Firewalker. So if you have Firewalker active and you teleport to your Blazing Chakram, you will do a 6-meter explosion that does 1250 heat damage with very high status chance. The explosion damage is affected by power strength, and the radius is affected by power range. However, the damage from the explosion does not bypass obstacles in the environment, and the damage will also diminish with distance. Nezha's third ability is called Warding Halo, and this is, well, Rhino's Iron Skin. So this ability will give Nezha a shield that has a 900 base health and grants him immunity to status effects. Now, just like Iron Skin, this ability will take Nezha's total armor, multiplied by 250%, and then add the resulting number as additional health for the shield. And just like with Iron Skin, when you first activate the ability, you will be invulnerable for 3 seconds and store all incoming damage as bonus health for the shield as well. So what you can do is, if you're in the void, you can activate the ability, run into one of the death lasers, and get a bunch of extra health on your shield. If you're not in the void though, you can just stand in the middle of a large group of enemies, activate the ability, and as they're trying to kill you, they will stack your shield. However, self-inflicted damage does not count. Now, unlike with Iron Skin, if enemies get within 2 meters of you when you have Warding Halo active, they will be continuously staggered and take 125 slash damage every second. And this pretty much just nullifies all the melee units, because as they run up to you and they're trying to hit you, they will just get staggered over and over and over again. So it's really good versus the infested, and actually all the factions, because you always have units like butchers and prot crewmen. Now, the base health of the shield, as well as the armor multiplier that will add health to your shield, and the damage this ability does are all affected by power strength, and since it multiplies Nezha's total armor, armor mods like steel fiber and armored agility will also increase the health of the shield. And the radius in which enemies will be staggered if they get too close to you is affected by power range. The augment for Warding Halo is called Safeguard, and this augment can be acquired by either reaching the rank of General under the Steel Meridian or the rank of Genius under Cephalon Suda and spending 25,000 standing. And what Safeguard allows you to do is cast Warding Halo on as many allies as you want, but only at 50% of its effectiveness. Now, the Warding Halo your allies will receive from this is very similar to the one you have as Nezha. However, while you can use the environment to stack the shield in the beginning, they cannot. They can only stack the shield by taking damage from enemies. And it can be used on all friendly units, so you can cast it on your allies, your companions, specters, hostages, chromas, effigies, atlases, rumblers, and even mind-controlled enemies and Necros' shadows. And Nezha's fourth and final ability is called Divine Spears, and this is a 2-stage ability. So when you first activate the ability, all enemies within 19 meters will be impaled on spears for 12 seconds, and they will be dealt 600 puncture damage. When you activate the ability again, all the enemies will take 600 impact damage as Nezha slams them to the ground. Now, while the enemies are impaled on the spears, the game considers them as if they were knocked down, so you can walk up to them and perform finishers. However, this doesn't always work because sometimes the enemies will be lifted way up into the air, so you can't perform the finisher on them. Now, the really cool thing about this ability is that the spears will ignore all nullification. So if there is a nullifier running over your spears, it will not affect them. It will only break your spears if you, as the Nezha, run into a nullifier bubble or into a bad combat or a scrumbus unit. So technically, this is the best crowd control you can take versus high-level Corpus or Corrupted. Now, both the impale and the slam damage are affected by power strength, the duration of the spears is affected by power duration, and the radius in which you impale enemies is affected by power range. So this is one of the best crowd controls in the game, because it A, affects a large area if you have enough power range, B, lasts for a very long time if you have enough power duration, and C, it ignores nullifiers. However, it does have one downside, and that's the cast time, because the initial activation takes 2 seconds, which is quite a lot of time in Warframe, and the slam takes 1 second, so it is recommended to use Natural Talent, which will decrease the cast time on both the initial activation and also the slam. And one more thing, if the enemy survive the initial impalement and then the slam to the ground, you have to wait for them to get back up fully, because if they are not up completely, they will not get impaled if you recast the ability again. So would I recommend Nezha? Yes. First of all, he is really easy to get, it's not too hard, and right now people have been doing sorties for a very long time, so lots of people have Nezha and they're pretty much just giving him away. And second of all, he is so bloody versatile. On the surface, maybe not so much, you can just run a little bit faster, you have Iron Skin, and you can impale enemies. But when you look into his abilities and you will learn about them, you will realize that there is so much stuff you can do with Nezha. I mean, you can run around faster than other Warframes, that's fine, but at the same time, you're leaving fire behind, which stuns enemies, and it cures status effects, which is, as I've said already, awesome versus the Grenier and the Infested. You can throw a Chakram and either hit an enemy with it and then kill that enemy to give yourself and your allies a little bit of healing, or you can teleport to the Chakram and run through missions much faster. And giving Warding Halo or Iron Skin to your allies, even though it's only 50% as strong as the one you have is incredibly powerful. And then you have Divine Spears, which do a lot of damage if you mod for power strength, and are incredibly good crowd control if you mod for power duration and power range. So yes, definitely go and get Nezha, he is really fun. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.